So a funny thing happened today. Today's my recording day, so I was recording Law 6 and 7 together, and I was supposed to get my eyebrows done. I was trying to get them done before recording, but my eyebrow lady was busy, so she said come after, like a couple hours after I was finished recording. And then right when I was about to start recording Law 6, she calls me and she's like, "Can you come now?" I'm like, "Babes, I can't." And she's like, "Okay, can you come in an hour and a half?" I'm like, "Ugh, okay." So I finished recording Law 6. I take an intermission, go get my eyebrows done, come back, and now we're recording Law 7. So if you go watch Law 6, you're going to see that episode was actually filmed by Chewbacca, and then this one is filmed by me because I have my eyebrows done now. So welcome, everyone, to the Baddest Bitch in the Building. This is a podcast where we talk about how we can milk everything and use the cards that we've been dealt to our advantage to come out on top, whether that be the patriarchy or human psychology or how to manipulate men, you name it. We're finding a way to take advantage of it. And we are doing this through the laws of power for women, which is a feminine twist on the 48 laws of power. So my name is Nikki. I am your host. I am the baddest bitch in the building, not to be confused with you, who is also the baddest bitch in the building. All right, with that, let's get into the episode. So, Law 7. Guilt is useless. Remove it from your emotions. So, what is guilt? Guilt is the feeling that we've done something wrong. But our understanding of right and wrong is completely backwards because for a lot of women, things that require putting yourself first fall into the wrong category, like saying no to things, setting boundaries, standing your ground, setting somebody straight when they disrespect you, not letting people speak over you. All these things where you're putting yourself first and upholding your standards often make us feel like we're doing something wrong. And a lot of the time, we feel guilty about things that have already happened. But being guilty for something that happened in the past means you are mentally stuck in a location that you physically left. So, ladies, the time for feeling guilty has passed. Maybe when you were a kid or you were young, you felt guilty about doing things, fine. But now our frontal lobes are developed. The time for feeling guilty is done. And I see so many women feeling bad, feeling guilty, feeling ashamed of doing things or wanting things that are rightfully deserved. But that's been programmed into our minds, and we need to unlearn guilt. We need to reprogram ourselves to stop feeling guilt because it's just such a useless, stupid emotion. Listen, you best believe that I do not feel guilty for anything. I don't. I really, really don't. And if this is something that you struggle with, then here is a motto that you should tell yourself and repeat it to yourself until you believe it. Don't feel guilty because they don't, whoever they may be. Okay, whoever it is that you're dealing with, it could be a guy you're dating, it could be a person you're working for or working with, it could be anyone, it can be even a family member who you're having difficulty dealing with. Don't feel guilty because they don't. They don't. They really, really don't. Like men will ask you to sleep with them on the first date. Your boss will ask you to work overtime with no compensation, and none of these people are going to feel guilty about those things. So why should you? And the thing about feeling guilty for things that you've done is at one point you wanted to do that, right? If I wanted to do it and I did it and I enjoyed it, then I don't feel guilty about it. And if you don't feel immediate remorse, then you don't feel guilty about it. Like if I, for example, I'm talking to someone and, I get kind of mad and I blurt something out and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. Okay, I felt guilty about it because I felt that guilt in the moment. But if I do something, I go shopping, I spend a bunch of money on something nice, and then I come home and then I show it to somebody and they're like, oh, this was really expensive. Why did you do that? Then I start feeling guilty. That makes no sense because I wanted that. I wanted to spend that money and go shopping. And then somebody else came along and made me feel guilty about what I wanted. So if I don't feel guilt about it in the moment, then I don't feel guilty about it at all. Guilt is what happens after your actions or your desires have been filtered through society, culture, people's opinions. It happens once people get their fingerprints on the things that you want and the things that you've done. So when you do something, right, like you go shopping, you buy something nice, you get excited, you come home and you show it to your boyfriend, for example. And then he's like, oh, you shouldn't have spent all that money. And then you feel guilty. You're like, oh my God, I shouldn't have, splurged on myself. He got his stupid little fingerprints, his dirty little, oily little fingerprints all over your desires and the things that you wanted for yourself. And now you feel guilty for something that is rightfully what you deserved. So think about that. It doesn't make sense. You let someone convince you that you're not deserving of the thing that you just got or the thing that you want. And ladies, if someone is telling you that you don't deserve something, it's because they can't give it to you or because they're jealous of you having it. Those are the only two reasons. I refuse to believe that there's any other reason someone would look you in the eye and tell you that you don't deserve something. And if you're associating guilt with not deserving, then that is going to repel good things from coming to you because you don't even put yourself in a place where those good things can find you. So guilt is debilitating, and guilt, along with her ugly stepsisters, shame and doubt, are the forces that are going to keep you in the same crappy place and hold you back from reaching your goals and being happy and getting the things that you want. So in this episode, we're going to get into why guilt is the dumbest and most useless emotion. And we're going to talk about how we can reprogram ourselves to stop feeling guilty. And don't forget, a man who was about to get convicted of a bunch of crimes was just voted the president of the most powerful country in the world. Again. And you're telling me that you feel guilty for telling somebody to not speak over you in a meeting at work? You're telling me you feel guilty for asking your boyfriend to take you shopping for your birthday? Give me a freaking break. All right, it's example time. So the example I'm going to use today is one that I actually found in the original book, The 48 Laws of Power. It was when I was reading law number 25, I believe, which is recreate yourself. And the book gave an example of someone you've probably never heard of. It's a bad bitch named Aurore Dupin-Dudevant. And all my years of French education finally came in handy for that. And when I was reading this, I'm like, who is this diva and how can I incorporate her into one of my episodes? So let me tell y'all about Dudevant. So in 1831, Dudevant, who was in her late 20s, decided, I'm going to leave my husband. I don't want to be with this man anymore. I hate marriage. I think it is a fate worse than being imprisoned. And so I'm going to leave. And at the time, she was living in some province in France, and she decided to move to Paris. And she really wanted to pursue a career as a writer. But obviously in the 1800s, women couldn't be financially independent and they couldn't have careers, especially as a writer. And so she was like, okay, well, women can't be writers. I want to be a writer. I'm going to be a writer. So what am I going to do? And this diva decided to give herself a pseudonym. So to write under the name of a man and then submit her manuscripts to get them published. So her pseudonym was George Sand. And she eventually became a published author. Like a year later, in 1832, she got her first book published. And so she had to lie and create an entire narrative and an entire persona for herself so that she could get what she wants and basically take advantage of a system that was meant for her to not succeed. And she did it. She got what she wanted. But if she had felt any guilt or remorse for lying and misleading people, she would not have been able to even have one of her manuscripts taken seriously. Because as soon as they saw the name of a woman, they would have been like, no. And she actually did. She tried to go to some publishers with her real name, presenting herself as, this is me. I am the author of this work. And one guy told her that women should be making babies, not writing books. If she were to feel guilt at any point of this, she would not have been able to get any of her work published. She would have gone to Paris in vain because she wouldn't have been able to make money off of her work, and she would have probably had to resort to prostitution, which is the only way women at the time could have been financially independent, aside from marriage or inheritance, of course. So remember what I said earlier about don't feel guilty because they don't? That is exactly what Guy Devant did. Do you think that the publishers who turned her down because she was a woman felt guilty? Do you think the publisher who said, go make babies, stop writing books, felt guilty? No. So why should she feel guilty for lying and pretending to be a man? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. And so this is a really good example of a situation where guilt could have literally been the determining factor between either being homeless or forced into sex work versus achieving your hopes and dreams and moving to a completely new city by yourself to build a career and do something that was impossible for women to do. All right, let me put it this way. Guilt is a miscommunication between the past and the present. If you did something, it's because at one point that's what you wanted, right? Assuming you were acting on free will and you weren't forced to do it. And that action or that desire becomes a miscommunication when something comes between you and that action. And that something is usually someone's opinion or something that society has said or a standard that culture or society has set for women. As women, we have been programmed to feel guilty about wanting or doing a lot of things. A lot of things. And why are we programmed? It's so we don't do those things. And if you look at pretty much any country, any culture around the world, you'll see that there are some norms and customs that are meant to control women and make them feel guilt or shame or fear around certain things. It could be living on their own before they're married, or not wanting to get married, not wanting to have kids, pursuing an education. If it was so wrong and so bad for women to put themselves first, then there would be this universal or divine law that said that women should never put themselves first, should never be concerned with their own self-interest. But no, it's culturally dependent. There's just some nonsense norms in every culture that make it frowned upon and inappropriate for women to do certain things and hold themselves to a certain standard. And these customs exist because men, decided that if you do X, Y, and Z, then you should feel bad, right? I hear it all the time. Oh, I was raised in a culture where it's frowned upon to do this, or it's, wrong in my community to act like this or to want this, or, I'm afraid of karma. Oh my gosh, first of all, stop worrying about karma. If karma was real, pretty much every man would be dead or in jail. So forget about karma. It is not real. That is another belief system that's been put in place for women to feel bad about their actions. Because at the end of the day, rules are arbitrary and they're usually meant to control you so that a small group, men, hold power. Look at the social and political dynamics of every country, every community, every culture, every religion, every organized group. Anywhere you go, you will see a common pattern, which is made up rules for one group to hold power while everybody else is subservient to that group. So why do you care about the rules that other people have set? That's stupid. If you need to pretend that you're following the rules, then do that and then quietly disobey them and do what you want. But you don't let other people's greed for holding on to power and control determine what you want to do. Because in society's eyes, You're already guilty for being a woman. So are you going to accept that sentence and imprison yourself in your own mind with guilt and shame? Think about it. Why are you playing into this system that's already here and meant to control you? Like, at the end of the day, it's your life. You can do whatever you want in this world. You can do anything you want. And let me put something else in perspective for you. Humans are the only animals with free will. And you freely willed to feel guilty about something that you wanted. Like, are you kidding me? Are you that brainwashed? Are you that programmed to put yourself last? Have you ever heard men complaining about feeling guilty for something? Oh, I feel guilty for sleeping with this girl and then ghosting her. Oh, I feel guilty for talking over this woman in a meeting. No! If men felt guilty about everything that they did, they would literally self-destruct and die. And something interesting that I thought about while I was just like reflecting on this concept for this episode was the amount of money that people have spent on Taylor Swift tickets. So, you know how Taylor Swift's Eras Tour tickets were really, really expensive, like thousands of dollars expensive. And, you know, I feel like there was a lot of conversation and a lot of posts about like, oh, why are people spending so much money on these tickets? Like, that's so stupid, da 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 da. And I just thought to myself, if men were spending this much money on concert tickets for like some buffoon like Drake, would there have been that much backlash and that much scrutiny over how much they're spending? Probably not. I swear, if men were spending 2-3 grand on floor seats to Travis Scott or Drake or whatever other idiot, people would not be as worked up about how much other people are spending on concert tickets as they are over women spending money on Taylor Swift. So fundamentally, I think there's a problem where we're making women feel guilty for their choices and for pursuing things that they want. Like, I'm sorry, if you're shaming someone for spending 2 grand on concert tickets, then you're probably broke. So we really have to approach things the way men do. We really, really do. We have to reprogram ourselves, get rid of the stupid guilt, and start thinking the way men do. And there is a quote from Shara 7, the Sprinkle Sprinkle lady, if you're not familiar with her, where she says something that I think about like every day. And I've memorized it almost word for word. I have this clip of her live saved in my favorites and I watch it multiple times a week. Like I just need to watch it for maintenance. And she says this: men will trick you, lie to you, tell you anything you want to hear. I love you, just to get what they want. And they will feel no shame and no remorse. And I love that quote because it is so true. Men will lie to you so you grant them access to your body, which is the most sacred thing that you have. So why do you feel guilty when you're asking a man to treat you well or, you know, spend some money or effort on you, or when you're setting your boundaries at work or your boundaries with someone you're dating? Why do you feel guilty about those things when men don't feel guilty about tricking you so that they can get access into the most sacred thing that you have, which is your body? Feeling guilty means you are not putting yourself first. And people will follow your example and they're not going to respect you. If you don't respect yourself, if you don't put yourself first, do not expect other people to treat you any differently than you treat yourself, because you are setting that example. Just think about that. But anyway, a lot of time, guilt is tied to something that has happened in the past. It's linked to deeper fears, like the fear of being rejected or being abandoned. And if you are letting the past control the present, then that's just dumb. Why are you mentally stuck in a place that you physically left? Why are you living in the past, which is a place that no longer exists? Right? It no longer exists, but you're trying to bring it back. You're trying to drag it back into the present. Feeling guilty about things that have happened in the past means you are letting people from your past, who might not even be in your life anymore, control your life today. That person might even forget that you existed. They're out there living their life, forgetting about you, not feeling guilty about anything they've done to you or any way they've made you feel. but you've given yourself this random burden and you've dragged that from the past into the present. But there is a person who is in our life today and always who we'll never get rid of, because we all have an inner saboteur, which is that mean girl who lives inside us, who wants to drag us down. And she's going to make us doubt ourselves. She's going to make us question the things that we want, question our worth. She's going to try to make us feel guilty. And our job is to make her as small as possible. And our saboteur, our inner mean girl, is connected to our fears. And fear is a wall that comes between us and the things that we want most. And behind that wall is success, happiness, money, love, abundance, everything that we dream of. And the biggest thing preventing that wall from falling down is guilt. The only thing that should be standing between you and your dreams is time, not fear, not guilt. Feeling guilty is like saying you don't deserve what you desire. And why would you want something if you're not supposed to have it? Why are you attracted to it if it's not what's meant for you, if it's not what you already deserve? If I want something, it's because I know I already deserve it. And if somebody is telling you that you don't deserve something, like I said, it's because they can't give it to you or they're jealous of you. Because we only want stuff that is meant for us. And I don't accept things that I don't want. I don't accept things that I don't deserve. I have a certain standard, and if anything or anyone comes below that, they're done. They're out. I'm taking you to the curb. So why are you allowing people to make you feel guilty about what's rightfully yours? That's stupid. That's like if you bought a house and then someone breaks into your house and says, you don't deserve this. And instead of calling the police, you're like, oh my God, you know what? You're right. Here, take my house. Like, I'm pretty sure people who break into houses are the ones who can't afford them. So why are you letting people walk all over the things that you want? You should never, ever let somebody make you feel guilty for wanting something, because you only want it because that's what you deserve. You want it because you're upholding your standard. If they're making you feel guilty about it, that means they can't meet your standard and they don't deserve to be in your life. And as a woman, maybe this is a little bit harsh, but as a woman, you are only as good as your standards. If you allow janky, crappy, lousy people into your life, they're going to drag you down. They're not going to value you, and you're going to end up not valuing yourself. So you're only as good as your standards. Hold yourself to a very high standard. If it's impossible for other people to meet your standard, fine. I'd rather have impossibly high standards and be single for the rest of my life than to lower my standards and be with a loser. And I'm never, ever going to feel guilty about it. All right, let's talk about reversals to this law. And I feel like the last couple of laws that I've talked about have been ones where there aren't really that many reversals to it. And this is an example of one of them. Because you shouldn't be feeling guilty about anything. In life, you are looking forward, not back. And obviously, this doesn't apply to situations where you've done something actually wrong or something heinous, like if you've killed somebody, I don't know. I'm not talking about situations like that. I'm talking about not feeling guilty for holding yourself to a certain standard and only accepting things that meet your standard. And I'm also not talking about, times where we act in the heat of the moment. Like if we're really angry about something and we have an outburst, or we're really rude or impolite to someone. In those cases, I'm sure you feel guilty about it. Maybe not right then and there when you're acting on those emotions, but once you've cooled down and stepped away from the situation, sure, you're probably going to feel guilty for acting that way. And yeah, you've done something wrong. But again, that's not what I'm talking about. The only thing I'm talking about here is upholding your standards and valuing yourself. Those are the things that you should never, ever feel guilty about. Stop letting external things determine how you feel about the things, the life, the goals that you want, and also making you feel guilty about the things that you're doing for yourself. If you're splurging on yourself, if you're treating yourself like a queen and some peasant comes along and tries to make you feel bad about that, well, obviously they're jealous. Or they can't give it to you anyway, so of course they're going to try to make you feel guilty. Of course they're going to try to drag you down. So you just have to tune it out. Like, when peasants talk to me, I can't even hear it. It's like they're speaking in a different language. It's like they're talking to me in gibberish. All I hear is blip, 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 blip. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. Stop. Like, go away. And you smell. Go away. Ew. So people's opinions, society's standards, social norms, all that crap that's meant to make you feel bad for putting yourself first, you need to just push those away, get that out of your head, and reprogram yourself to not value those things because they don't matter. They don't matter. And remember, if they don't feel guilty, why should you? Why should you? And with that, I am going to end this episode. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I hope that you're able to take something away from this and get rid of that stupid guilt that might be holding you back. If you want to get in touch with me, you know where to find me. My socials are in the show notes. You can drop a comment on Spotify or on YouTube. And don't forget to rate, like, subscribe, follow, whatever. Just don't forget. Don't forget that you are the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. All right, until next time, stay bad and guilt-free. Love you. Bye.